Hey there guys! Well, the pumpkin candles have all blown out and the kids have eaten enough candy to give even an elephant a sugar rush. Halloween may well be over, but that doesn't mean that I can't deliver you a scream full of retro gaming goodness. So with that in mind, I bring you the top 13 spooky and horror related retro games of all time, in my opinion. In 13th position is a game that definitely suits the number. Namco's Splatterhouse is clearly stylised around the Friday the 13th franchise, in particular the main character Rick and his uncanny resemblance to Jason Voorhees. So just exactly how do you turn the image of such a well-known supernatural serial killer into a lovable playable gaming character? Simple really. Give him a love interest to save, a horde of enemies to fight in doing so, a demonic ski mask to wear for good measure, and a bloody huge blade to splatter anything that stands in his way, and that should just about do it. At number 12 is the aptly titled Decap Attack, seeing as the main protagonist battles his way through the many levels by literally using his head as a weapon. Chuck D. Head is a lanky looking cartoon style decapitated mummy who has to jump, swim and throw his own head at his enemies in his quest to defeat the evil demon Max D. Cap and his underworld minions who threaten all life on the surface world. So if you enjoy a good platforming game along the lines of Toki or Wonder Boy, then Decap Attack is certainly one to add to your playlist. And for PC owners out there is absolutely no good reason for you not to give it a go, as it's now available for download as part of the Sega Classics range on Steam. At 11, we have the rather devilish and somewhat overlooked Doom clone Blood by Monolith Games. With a good variety of weaponry on hand, nice sprite animations and some pretty slick and funny dialogue along the way, Blood is a rather enjoyable gut-drenched escapade through a demonically overrun world and should keep even the most thirsty of FPS fans busy for at least a short while. Along with its sequel, Blood 2, this game is definitely worth a peek. So who doesn't enjoy wasting the odd zombie or two at the weekend? It's become almost a stable diet for today's generation of gamers, with what seems like over half of all Steam and mobile games getting in on the act in some way. But for me there was only one game that truly captured the art of it, letting you do the whole thing in style and feel every single squeeze of that trigger along the way. Also providing at least one use for the Dreamcast gun controller. So at number 10 it can only be House of the Dead 2 by Sega. Now you may be wondering why 2? Well, that's because it was on the Dreamcast and Dreamcast rocks. Enough said. Bouncing in at number 9 is a very retro game indeed. Made by Pallasite Software way back in 1986, Cauldron 2 places the player in control of a rather bouncy yet kind of cute looking pumpkin on a quest to defeat an evil witch by collecting the 6 magical items that have been scattered throughout her sinister castle. Sounds easy, right? Wrong. The game required the player to make pixel-perfect jumps as they controlled the pumpkin around the castle, avoiding deadly traps and obstacles, as well as the witch's minions, all out to carve you a new one. With a then massive map, this game was, and still is, a hell of a challenge, but a fun one at the same time. Plus, you can't get much more Halloweeny than pumpkins and witches, right? At number 8, a game that had to make the list if only for the amount of money that I pummeled through its coin slot in my local arcade back in the 80s. Ghosts and Goblins is a classic and always will be. The premise, a simple one. Rescue the princess that has been kidnapped by jumping your way through the many levels, avoiding and defeating numerous enemies along the way to finally get to the castle that holds her. Now where have I heard that before? Ghosts and Goblins seemed pretty revolutionary when it came out, not only for the multitude of awesome weapons to be discovered, as well as one rather shitty one, and I think you know which one I'm talking about, but also for its beautiful pixel art and character design for Arthur and the hordes of evil undead and monsters that he got to slay along his journey. What Capcom achieved with Ghosts and Goblins was astounding, and this game will always hold a special place in my heart. Coming in at 7 is Pallasite Eve by Square. This PlayStation exclusive is a game based on the Hideki Sina novel of the same name and sees our protagonist, New York police officer Aya Bria, attempt to stop Eve, a woman who plans to destroy the entire human race by means of spontaneous human combustion. The player has to guide Aya through the various areas of New York to find a way to stop this diabolical plan. With real-time combat and RPG elements thrown in for good measure, this gameplay was pretty unique in its day and acts as a means to really draw you, the player, into the story, with great effect. By today's standards, the game may seem quite tame as far as shock horror value goes, but it was in fact Square's first M-rated title, and as such, was seen as somewhat controversial at the time of its release. Many fans of the game are still holding out for a remake for the PS4, and although I'd love to see this too, I certainly won't be holding my breath for that to happen anytime soon. I'll probably be far more likely to just spontaneously combust. But who knows? At 6. Now how could I have any kind of horror spooky games list without mentioning Resident Evil by Capcom? This game really should need no kind of introduction, but for those that are unfamiliar with the franchise, let me explain. Resident Evil takes place in a zombie-infested mansion and the expansive underground facility below it, owned by the sinister Umbrella Corporation. As either Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield, your job is to explore the mansion and facility in search of survivors from Bravo Team, a group of missing police officers from the Special Unit STARS. The game is seen by many as the first true survival horror game, and although I will argue this later in the list, this game certainly did have its fill of jump scares and heart-pounding moments along the way. I'll never forgive those zombie dogs for pouncing through those windows and making me literally shit my pants. Well done, Capcom, you got me. Today's number 5 is just one part of the all-time classic Castlevania series of games. Symphony of the Night is, I think, the best example of the series, with awesome graphics, storyline and gameplay to boot. Jumping into the role of Dracula's son Alucard, the player gets to explore the expansive map and grounds of Dracula's castle, which has reappeared after Richter Belmont, the previous game's protagonist, proclaimed himself to be the new governor of the manor. But not on my watch, mate. As Alucard, you must set out to defeat Richter and reclaim the family mansion. With many new role-playing elements added, such as levelling up, HP and MP usage, and stats that can be improved upon with massive effect to the player's skills and attributes, Symphony of the Night was seen as a little too different from the other Castlevania games at the time, and was actually somewhat of a flop in the US when it first released. Thankfully though, over time this game has truly achieved the acclaim it deserves, with it now becoming a cult classic among many retro gamers, some of which would even go as far as proclaiming it to be one of the best video games ever made. Do yourself a favour and check it out now. Number 4. So Resident Evil, you think you're the daddy of the 3D survival horror genre, do you? Well, think again, son. A good 4 years previous to your birth came a game from a then small French software house Infogrames called Alone in the Dark, which has since been listed in the Guinness Book of World Records Gamers Edition as the true first 3D survival horror game. So, meh. Now, I'm not a fan of the whole franchise. In fact, some of the later games were terrible in my opinion, but the first game, simply titled Alone in the Dark, set its stall out well as a heavily H.P. Lovecraft-inspired action-adventure game with tension and suspense as its main weapons against the players' minds as they explore an old mansion in the role of 1920s detective Edward Carnby. Events obviously soon take a turn for the worse as supernatural occurrences place Edward in increasingly trickier predicaments. Now graphically it's certainly showing its age, but the soundtrack has you on tenterhooks the whole way through, and with plot twists, murders and kidnappings to solve, Alone in the Dark may not appear to be much, but delivers greatly. Check it out for yourself and see. At 3. Probably one of my favourite co-op shooters ever, Zombies Ate My Neighbours, and as you can tell from the rather tongue-in-cheek title, the game doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's a good thing, because with soda can grenades, holy water pistols and giant babies to battle, this is not a serious game at all. As either Zeke, Julie or both if you have any friends, you'll get to fight your way through each of the levels, trying to rescue as many survivors as you can along the way. Although just one may well be enough to open the ender level portal, you will find yourselves looking for that perfect score and attempting to rescue everyone possible. It's fun, it's addictive, and that's what counts, right? Haven't got a key for that door? Don't worry, a bazooka will do just fine, and it's little things like that, along with a foot-tapping soundtrack, that make this game such a hit with me. At number 2. If you doubted that this game was going to make today's list, you needn't have panicked. The original Doom will always be a great love of mine. This was the game that got me to buy my very first PC back in the day, and I never looked back. ID Software's Epic will be heralded long after I've gone, and for good reason. Now it may just have seemed like another rehash of Wolfenstein 3D, and sure it shares its roots with it, but Doom is so much more than that. Set on Mars after a demonic outbreak has occurred, your job as Doom Guy is to go the hell in there and clean up all the mess, with a ton of guns on offer, and of course don't forget the chainsaw. You battle your way through the relentless hordes of hell that stand in your way. This game had it all. Great music, tension, adrenaline pumping action, and the BFG 9000. What's not to love? So bringing us to our top spot then, my number 1 is a game that got me totally hooked and yet I still think widely overlooked by so many people. Realms of the Haunting by Gremlin Interactive is epic, make no mistake. From the cinematic live action cutscenes to the dramatic storyline that draws the player right in like a lost lamb to the slaughter, it has it all. Taking on the role of Adam Randall, after receiving a letter from your late father, you visit a strange mansion, but as you cross the threshold, the door slams solidly shut behind you, leaving you no choice but to investigate the eerily lit corridors in an attempt to uncover its dark secrets. With an unfolding plot that offers over 40 hours of gameplay, Realms of the Haunting is a game that should, in my opinion, be experienced by anyone claiming to be a true retro gamer. Now the only letdown for me here is the control setup, which I can only describe as being rather clunky. utilising a weird mouse-keyboard combination that's not only unfamiliar with modern PC gamers, but actually quite frustrating. Now, I don't hold this against the game, however, as it can easily be rectified using a hotkey method to redefine the controls completely and allowing a much more enjoyable experience, and to see how you can do that, check the description below. Now, graphically, it holds up well against similar age titles, and although basic by today's standards, offers enough clarity and visuals to get the story across without much of an issue. If ever a game was in need of a remake, then Realms of the Haunting is definitely it. I'd love to see this game brought up to date for the new generation. Who knows, the original shot movie scenes may still be out there somewhere on tape in a higher definition than they were originally coded for in the game back then. Fingers crossed that someday this will happen, though I seriously have my doubts about that. The game is, however, available on Steam for around about £2 and is definitely worth a purchase in my opinion, so go check it out. So that brings us neatly to the end of my top 13 spooky/horror retro games of all time, and before you get up to slap me, firstly remember this is my opinion and I appreciate it's only a fraction of the games of this kind that could have made the list, so if your faves didn't get a mention, I'm truly sorry. I hope that you enjoyed today's video, however, and if you did, then maybe consider giving that thumbs up a right good spanking, and don't forget to subscribe for more retro specs. See you soon!